Welcome back, folks. Some more development on a Wednesday afternoon, and we're going to take a look at where we left off last night, and then we're going to move on to something new, and then we're going to go back to our previous topic if we finish that. Now I'm going to explain what we're going to do today in a moment, but first we'll take a look at where we left off last night. So what we were doing was basically making a widget for our research station. So if we build a research station and we actually look at our research, you will actually see that we are currently researching the probe. Now we may need to take a look back at this, but we can check to see if it's actually working or not. Hey Polaris, how are you, mate? It's nice to see you back, I think. Right, so what we're doing here is we created a widget last night. Now this isn't coming in, but we can take a look at this. That's obviously the saved version, not coming in, but we'll take a look at it if we create a new game. We'll give it a silly name, then we shall continue, and if we create a couple of years, and then we're going to set our research to probe, close that, and finally when we do this, now you'll see that the idea here is to have some details on this side of the screen and then have like the main probe thing or whatever we're researching on this side. So that's where we left it last night. We've got a bit to work on the left hand side, which should be fairly straightforward because we have all the values for the research in our controller. So on to today's topic and what we're going to look at. Right, so here's the thing. We're going to create a new game again. We're going to just give it a silly name. Now I'm going to create a refiner and then I'm going to explain the issue and how we're going to get around it. So basically what happens is these have got, the factories have got a limited or pretty much an unlimited input, right? You can basically input, right? But I don't want that. What I want is for when the input reaches a certain point that it basically turns around and says, right miner, please stop giving me stuff. And then the miner basically stops producing. Okay? So the idea here is what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to change the Spliner, right? And I'll show you why in a second. Because at the moment we only have if we look at it, right, so we'll look at the Spliner and we'll press stop. Now if we create, you'll notice in here we have the end actor, right? So at the end of the spline, that's where we have an actor, right? And that's so that we can interface to that actor to tell it when like an object has reached the end of the conveyor belt and therefore should be transferred into that input, okay? But what we really want is also a start actor, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this. And we're going to call it supply actor. Okay, because that's supplying the product onto the spline. Okay? Now, we're going to have to do it whenever we basically create a spline. Right? And this isn't done in the spline itself. Although, having said that, we could kind of do it here. Right? In the begin play. We could do it here by passing in a value and basically exposing it on spawn. Right? You'll notice here that this one is not exposed on spawn because we don't know the end actor until it's basically done. Right? But our supply actor, we could do it on expose on spawn. And then when we create this variable, right, I'm going to try and move it. Well, kind of moved it to the right place, kind of. Right, this just never really... Yeah, that'll do. Right, so, hey, Kofi. Oh, you were at sea. Do you work as a fisherman or on the ships or whatever, or were you... Was it pleasure ride or... What's the story there, Kofi? But it's good to see you back. Right, so this actor is going to have to be done, and this is going to be pretty easy actually. All we'll need to do is go into each of our buildings, right, which admittedly is getting a bit bigger, but you'll notice that when we spawn this, we can refresh the nodes and we've now got a supply actor. And then this is absolutely perfect because we can just plug that in there as well. And we can just go through our different buildings and do that for each of them. So we've got the refiner. Now we'll do the refiner. Which is going to be right here. And we just refresh the nodes. Then we plug that in there. Okay. And then we go to our smelter and do the exact same thing again. So we just refresh the nodes on this and pop that in there. So what this is going to do is basically we're going to send a message with an interface back to all the buildings to tell it to stop processing. Okay? Now, for some of these, this is going to have a chain reaction. Like, if you've got something making widgets, right, and that becomes full of iron sheets, right, see that becomes full of widgets, right, then basically having used up all your iron sheets, it's going to fill up until, or sorry, once we fill up the widgets to, let's say, your maximum output is 50 that you can store on site, right, then that's going to go back until it's going to start loading up iron sheets without using any, right? And then that's going to feed back to the smelter. And then once that becomes full, that's going to feed back to the refiner. And then once that's done, it's going to feed back to the miner. So basically, once the widgets become full, it's going to be a chain reaction back all the way to the miner to say we don't need any more. Okay? So we shall see how that works. Now, I do see an issue straight away, but we'll conquer that issue when we come to it, right? But in the meantime, we've got done the miner, done the refiner. We just need to do the fabricator. The researcher doesn't matter because it doesn't output anything onto a conveyor belt, so we're not going to worry about that one. So all we've got to do now is the fabricator. And it's the same process for this, which is refresh nodes. Okay, so we can save that. Now, now that's all done. Oh, that's good, Kofi. Hope you had a good time. Right, so now that we've done that, okay, what we can do next. Oh, have you seen the drones? Kofi, have you seen the drones? Right, so basically we need to start. We've already got an interface, right? We've got a buildings interface. So fundamentally, what we can do here is, it's not BPI transform item, and it's not selected item. There is a interface that we've got called BPI building. I don't know what you've missed actually, if you've missed like what I've updated all the information screens for the buildings. Right, so that's not what we want. So we're going to have to check the fabricator, and let's see class settings. And the BPI building is somewhere. It's in base build, right? So we have to go in here, then we can check the class settings for this. And that doesn't really tell us where it is, to be honest. So a good guess there by me. So we can add a new function to this, and call it stop supply. Okay, and in here we don't need anything, it's just going to be a message straight back, and it's going to actually be our components that are going to trigger this, right? So we're going to have to do, it's our comp input that's going to trigger it. So we need to make sure that it has this interface. So it's going to have BPI building, and we shall also add it to comp output just in case. Right, I'm not sure if this is going to need it or not, but we shall check it in. We'll put it in for now. Okay. Now, this is where the fun starts. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take a look. And there's the thing that we want. Right, the storage limit. Okay. Now, if the storage limit is exceeded and we're not processing, then we want to stop any kind of supply. Okay, that's the logic here. So let's see if we actually use this value anywhere. Now this storage limit has got a storage limit of 500. Now we obviously want to cut this down. So we'll cut this down in the short term to 10. Okay. So let's see if we actually do any. Yeah, we don't use it yet. Okay. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to go to here and tidy this up a bit to start with. And we refresh output. Refresh output is for when we change a recipe. Output from storage. Okay, so let's try something here. What we're going to have to do is check this value against what we've got in our input to find out what we need to do. Now, I haven't completely thought this through yet, so this is getting a little more complicated as I look at it, right? This is the comp output, but we really want to look at and yeah, actually, in the first instance, we can look at this, right? Because what we're doing is we're looking at how much we have in store, right? So if we drag this in, we can have a look at what this actually looks like, right? So we can just get a copy of this just to give the example here, right? So we can pull off this and we say break, and you'll see we've got item and quantity. So basically, if this quantity is greater than or equal to the storage limit, then we want to tell our building to stop processing. Okay? So let's do that, shall we? So what we can do is we can test it. We can come in here, right? And we should actually put this at the start. Right? So we will probably use a function here. We'll call it is output full. Okay, and it's going to return a boolean, so we'll call that is full. Okay, we'll go back to the event graph. We shall basically copy this. In fact, we'll cut it and we'll go back to our output full. Right, and then we'll paste that in. We're going to get rid of that because we're going to actually do it for each. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say temp full as a local variable, and we're going to save that, and then we're going to set it to true to begin with, right? And basically, if any of these are greater than the storage limit, then we're going to set it to false. Yeah, so actually we want it the other way around. So we want it false, right? And then what we're going to do is for each loop, and this is actually going to be here. We'll move this down. Then this temp fill is going to go in here. So at the end we're going to say that. Okay, we're going to do that to break our struct. And then we're going to get this. And then we're going to do the quantity, and we're going to say is greater than or equal to the storage limit. And because this is an output, there's only one output, so basically this is going to work absolutely fine for us. So this is going to be a branch. And fundamentally, if it's true, we're going to set it to true. If it's false, we basically do nothing, and when we come in, we're going to set this to false. Okay. Then we're going to move this. Probably, actually, we're going to move these down a bit into here as we reorder this about a bit. We'll put that there. We'll put this here. Then this goes here. That goes there. Then this goes in here. We'll move this out a bit so that we've got a bit more space. We'll drag these closer to here. That'll do it. Once we've got this all set up, we'll move the other stuff back in. This is just a matter of tidying it up. Then we can get rid of all this white, well, it's not white space, it's kind of black space. Right, so there we go. So if any of these are full, then this is going to come back with full, okay? And we could actually call this while processing. There's two ways we could do this. We could do this with an interface, right? Or we could do it by calling this to find out if it's full. Okay? But for the moment, what we want to do is we don't want to process anything if it's full at this point. Okay? So we'll add a little bit of space in here. Then we'll move this back to its rightful position. Then we'll call this. Now, what we could do is I'm going to click on, I'm going to open that up again, and I'm going to make it pure. And then we won't need an execution pin. Right? So basically we could just do not right, because we want the inverse so that the branch is the right way around, the right way. Right, because if this is true, we don't actually want to do anything. If it's false, then we want to process, right? So that's why I did the not there. So we'll put that in there, and then we can make it nice and tidy and go like that. Now, in theory, we should be able to get the building owner, and then if we get my spline, that's not the spline. Interesting. Now, it's actually the input spliner. Now, there's an interesting concept. Right, what we need to do, right, is we need to check what the spliner's doing when it actually connects. Right, so we have our supply actor and our end actor. Now our end actor is the output spliner. Right? Or rather, no, it's not. What we want to do here is we have conveyor out, and in refiner we have conveyor in, conveyor out. Okay. Right, fine. So, in our actual spliner here, sorry, it was in our component output. When we do this, we need to find out or at least, I think this is where it's going to be better to use the interface, because then it doesn't matter what building it is, right? Because we can always call the interface. So we'd be able to say stop supply, and that's not really what we want. But if we go to BPI building, if we in fact go to base building has the building thing, right? So we can actually do something similar to what we did here, right? With rotate self. In fact, we do something similar. I'm going to try and show you where we do something similar. Okay, maybe not there. Let's have a look at the refiner. And let's see if we can show you an example of what I'm trying to do here. Right. Here's the event transfer item. Okay. So this is in the refiner. Okay. So let's, for a second, now I don't think that's doing anything at the moment, but we're not going to worry too much about that. What I'm going to say is event stop supply. Okay. Now, that's fine. And now what we should be able to do is go to comp output, stop. You see, we can't do this. What we'd have to do is in our base building, well, this will still work, right? What we can do is we're in our base building, right? We don't need that for just now. Event stop supply. And then we can send it to the child. Okay. pretty sure I did this way before. We don't get descendants. Then we say for each. Now, if this works, it'll be a miracle, but it does have some logical merit. Okay. So we'll just basically say stop supply. Okay. So if we go back to here, this is going to be stop supply, except it's not going to be that one. Stop right, so it's not that, it's a message. What's that? Right, so it's not that. Right, so we haven't quite got this done yet because we can't quite call base building. We've got the event, and it should be giving us, you see, the reason it should be giving us that is because it is a base building object reference. Let's do that. Let's compile, because we might have missed a compile. And nope, that's not it. Right, I've had this problem before. Here's the funny thing, right? If I cast this, let's cast it to a miner, right? And what I intend doing with this is, if I say stop supply, right? It's not on comp output, right? So it's not that, obviously. And it's not, it should be message. I should be getting message there. Right? Because the miner has got the BPI building interface. Right? So there's no reason why this isn't working. Yeah? So my actual thoughts were that I would maybe have to cast it to each of the different buildings before I could do this, right? But you'll notice here that if I copy this, right, Now this is a BPI based building, right? So if I can call this from a BPI based building, then if the owner of this is a base building, then I should be able to call this. Right. Thank you. I don't know why it wasn't giving me that option. Or it's maybe not even going to compile once I plug this in. It might get offended by this if I do this. No, it didn't. Now, the interesting thing here is that this is the miner that we done. And the miner actually doesn't need to do this. So we'll just leave this one. Right, but the refiner does need to do this one. Right? So what we'll do is we'll say stop it's not that. So it's stop supply. Stop supply. Right, so it's an event, which is fine. And comp output needs another variable here. Right, hang on till I think about this. Hang on till I think about this. Right. So if the refiner becomes full, then we want it to stop processing itself, plus we want it to tell the previous building to stop processing as well. Okay? That's the logic here. So we can add a variable here and say is full don't process. Okay. Now I'm not 100% sure about this, but that seems like a reasonable thing. And here have we already got is like a new process time. In fact, we'll go back to our base building, right? And we shall actually add a variable in here. And we'll call it allowed to process. Okay, and it's going to be set to true to begin with. So we'll set that. We'll save that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to your comp output. Then we're going to say allowed to process is false, right? Then on this one we're going to do, if it's just processed one, right, then it's obviously not full anymore, right? So we can basically say this: you're allowed to process again. Okay? Oh, we need a copy of this. And plug it in there. Refresh that. So we'll test this out on the miner. In fact, do we actually need this? I don't think we do. But we'll leave it there for now, right? Because it can set process all at once. What we can say is allowed we can get that, and we could do an AND with this actually. So we can do AND right. So we can plug that in there. We can plug that in there. Then we can plug that in there. Okay, we can move this there. We can move this here. And yeah. So it would appear to me we don't actually need the interface call. We just need to set this as allowed to process. And then if we're not allowed to process, then it's not going to do anything. Right? So on that, I'm going to have a quick cigarette. I shall be back in about 2.5 minutes Don't go anywhere, guys. I shall be right back. Okay, we're back. And let's get on with this. Now, we should actually be able to test this now on the miner. So let's give it a try, shall we? So we'll create a new game just in case something weird's happened. And we don't want to do that. Right, now this should start processing, right? Mining. Miner. And if we look at our comp output, it's currently 3, 4, and I'm guessing this is going to get, I'm hoping that this is going to get to 10. Okay, we're at 6. This could also give us a look at something to put in our values for this. So we're at 8, we're at 9. We're at 10. And it shouldn't go up. And it's not going up, which is good. Now, it actually made a noise there, which kind of says that it's completed its quantity stuff, but it actually hasn't. So I'm not too sure why that is. Or in actual fact, that should happen, right? So in storage it says 0, but I don't think I use that variable, right? So we are not. Let's see what we've got here. Right, let's take a look at our miner, and we only have a comp output. Now I'm going to tell you when. Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Our only problem is now okay, we've got two different things here going on, right? The sound was correct, played the sound at the right time and everything, right? But the problem is that it actually stopped process running, which in this case we do want to happen, right? So what we actually need to do here is split these up, right? That does need to go in there and do that. Right? But in this case, we need a separate action for this. Right? We do need a separate set of logic going into this. Right? Because we don't want to deactivate process, right? We want it to continue to try to process but then kind of stop. So in actual fact, we want it to do this. And we want it to do this, but we don't want it to clear the timer. Okay. Now our issue from here is that we do want to do this. That's all fine. I'm fine with that. But the issue here is when we are firing back up, we need something to tell this that it's changed, and this should reactivate I mean, at the end of the day, we could actually do that and leave it at that. But the point here and the problem here is that we only really want to do this once, right? But the problem is, if we do it once, we can say do once, right? But the problem is we do have to reset it. Okay? We have to reset this at some point. Okay? So we need to figure out a way of doing that. Or, I mean, we could just do nothing for the moment, right? We'll leave that code there just as a reminder that we actually need to do something, right? Because what happens is, if we are out of mineral, right, it basically plays a shutdown sound, right? Then stops the processing and deactivates the movement on the miner thing, right? So what we'd like to do in this case is it comes in here, we do this, play this sound once, and then once it fires up again, right? Once it fires up again, we play the sound once it shuts down again, right? So it only does it when it either shuts down after it only plays the sound if it shuts down after it's been processing and it has been stopped, right? if I just plug this straight in here, it's going to play it basically all the time. Right? So that's just something to consider for the future. But I'm going to need this in each of our different buildings. Right, so in process, we're going to be pasting it in here. Okay, then in the smelter, that's not the process, that's definitely not process. Right, so it goes in here. Save that. Then in the fabricator, it goes in here. And that's it. And now, so that's the comp input, right? So we're going to basically be doing the exact same thing for the comp input. Except the code, the comp input is also going to tell the previous thing to stop. Okay? So the comp input is going to do this. Right, the comp output actually shouldn't stop supply when I think about it, but the comp input should. Right, basically when the output is full, it should just stop processing. That makes more sense. But when the input's full, the input should definitely tell the previous building or the building that's supplying it to stop. Okay, now we could do this again with another variable in our base building. We could tell it like don't output. Okay, there could be a don't process, don't output. Okay, so that might actually be an easier way of doing it. And we've got rid of the owner output there, so we need to plug this back in. It's a bit foolhardy. Right? So, in our comp input, we've got our storage limit again, which is 500. So let's make that 10. Okay, let's go to our comp output and go to here, and then what we can do is we can copy this part, or let's just do it for the start, right? What we'll do is we'll create a function and we'll say is input full. Okay, then we'll say input full, then we'll disconnect this, we shall get our supply, we'll call it temp full, right? We'll always set it just to make sure it's false. Grab off here for each loop. Grab this, break it, grab this, get, we basically say it's greater than or equal to, do that, then we branch, do that, we know that this is coming down here a bit, push this up a bit, then we set temp full to there, set that, drag that up, join that up, drag this in, it's completed, there we go. We can save that. And if we want to tidy this up further, we can do that. Could do that on the output as well if we wanted. We could click on that, hide unconnected pins, save that, and there we have it. Right? So this is where the fun starts. So the next thing we need to do is go back to our event graph. There's our event begin play. And we don't have anything happening here. Okay, so basically what we've got here is, let's say it's a refiner. what it's doing is basically, or the important part of this here is an event, an interface call, this one here. Okay, now the point here is we're still going to do this, right? But we are going to get our comp out input and we're going to say input is input full. Okay, which gives us an issue, not a big issue but a small issue, is we want to turn this pure. So we can now go to our miner, or actually not, we can now go to our to here, and what we're going to do is we're going to drag this out a bit. Not 100% sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do this at the end, right? So if the input is full, don't know what I've done that for. So we're going to branch. So if the input is full, we don't do anything. Sorry, if the input is not full, we just carry on, right? If it is full, then what we do is we get our owner building, this is the refiner, right? So we don't need to do that. Right, so we've got to get our start actor, or actually it's our supply actor, which we don't have, right? So it can't be in the base building. So it's in the Spliner. Right? So what we actually need to do here is in our refiner, we need to get the spline, right? And we need to get supply actor. And this is where things become a little bit, we need to cast to base building, and if that fails, we need to cast it to base connector. So we do that, then we go to base building and we say stop supply. But it's not that. Right? Plug that in there just to stop it from getting upset. Right, now where did we call that? It was comp output. It was in here, but we've not got it anymore. It was an interface call. So we were looking at the refiner, right? So we're looking at the refiner. Let's think this through before we jump to any weird implication. So we say stop we definitely do the stop supply thing. You see, here's the event stop supply. Right, so we'd probably need to do this anyway. That's not it. So it would be as base building. We're not using an interface call here. Right? Oh, yeah. Right, so we just want to stop supply. Right, because if we go in here, okay, it might be the interface call one. Stop supply interface call. Right, so what we'll do is add a breakpoint there, compile it. Right, now we're going to have to build the two things here. So we'll press play for now. We'll say new game just in case there's any nonsense. So we shall start up our thingamabob. And once this becomes active, we'll spin it round. Right, so we'll now join this up. Oh yeah, Kofi, you won't have seen this. You won't have seen the new conveyor belt. But yes, indeed, we have a new conveyor belt. So, what we want to do here is have a look at, actually we don't want to look at the miner. We want to have a look at the refiner. And its comp input. And I think it's using all its stuff right away. So what we're actually going to have to do is we're going to have to up the processing time for bauxite. Sorry, the iron ore, so that it basically can't do it fast enough. Or we're going to have to pull down the time that it takes to make right, so we've got iron ore processing, the bauxite, right. We have a processing time right. Let's have a look at recipes. Right, so basically it's not in here. Right, so the question is, where is it? Where is the speed by which what we'll do is we shall put our starting workers to 10. Save that. Then we'll go back to our recipes and we shall change the iron ore to 5. Okay. And click continue. Then we'll put our refiner down. Then we'll do our miner thing. Then I'm just hoping that I can view these. I'm just hoping that I can view the separate things. The comp input on the refiner. So if I go refine, refiner and comp input, and this is our item quantity here, so that's okay. So we can take that, do our thing, and I don't know if that's actually worked. It's not. There's something going on there. Right, let's do that again. That was a bit weird. Apparently we have a bug. That was a bit of a weird one, folks. And not going to worry about that too much. I've still got designs on doing a new spline building system that does it better and looks more, well, just basically looks better. Okay. Okay. What's going on here? I do declare. So that's false, therefore that's true. So it should do that. It's not getting there for some unknown reason. What has in the world has happened here? So we step over. What? The output spliner's not is valid. That's valid. So it's setting it to here. What? Right, let's resume that. Comes to here. False, so it goes not, so it's true. Step over. Current spliner's nothing. What? Right, okay. How come this is suddenly not working? Right, let's take a look at the miner. Or the base building, which has got the output spliner. Right. Now, this was working. You've seen it a minute ago, everything was working. Right, we're going to do a new game, just in case there's been some weird stuff happened. Alright, probe. Refiner. There. Right. So we're going to disable that for now. Okay. Then this, we're going to spin it around. Okay. That's fine. Better. Okay. Then what we're going to do is obviously do our conveyor belt. Come on, stop doing that. Now, apparently I didn't do that right. And I'm guessing this output spliner's still nothing. Well, isn't that a weird one? And I'm guessing that has to be the miner, right? No, it's the refiner. Right, so that's actually okay. It's actually the miner that we're interested in here. Right? So it's the comp output on the miner that we need to be worrying about here. Now the question is, how do I test this here? I mean, I suppose what we do is we stick it straight into a fabricator which isn't doing any of that code, right? But it's going to have a component output as well. But, Houston, we have a bit of a sticky situation here. Right, so let me think of how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to test it. I'm stuck. I'm lost for words here about what's going on. It's just suddenly stopped doing it, even though none of the code actually stops it doing anything. Right, so the miner should work here, right? It should get to here. Well, once the miner's built, of course. Now, we should probably put this after this, because obviously we don't want to do this calculation if the output spliner isn't even there, right? So we can build this. Apparently things are going from bad to worse here. Right, so the thing we want to do now is go to the miner and check to see if it's actually filling up with stuff, right? So our comp output is full. Our comp output is full. Wait a minute. I'm an idiot. output from storage. Output from storage. Okay, we have an issue. And I'm going to have to think about this one for a good while. The problem is that it creates a new item, but then, well, we can have a look at it here, right? Let's have a look at it. So, to output from storage, we make sure that we've got an output spliner, right? And if it's complete, then we look in our S input, output, then we take one away, then we do this. Okay? So the point being that we don't actually do this thing here, right? If the output is full, we basically stop processing. Yeah, we don't do this. What we do is we stop processing, but we don't stop outputting. We're always outputting if we've got something in here, right? So in actual fact, we're going to stop that, right? We're going to break that. We're going to break that. And we're going to do that. So, in actual fact, we do that. Right, we were going to do a bit of rearranging here. So we don't want to do this first. Or do we? Well, doesn't make any difference, right? If we've got it wrong, we'll move it around a bit to fix it up. But what we want to do is we want to do that first. And probably that. Right? Then we do this. So if it's false, we don't do this part. Wait a minute, is that right? If it is full, so we do that, then we do that. If it's true, we just do that. Right, so that's going to continue processing. It's going to continue outputting as long as we've got stuff in the output, right? Now, if it hasn't, then we just go straight through an output, right? So that should be our fix. So let's take a look at that and continue. Right, this is getting a little bit more complicated than I knew it was going to be. Not an easy task, this one, right? Because of all the different objects we're calling and who their parents are and all that stuff. But there is a little bit of sneaky code going on between whether we can produce and whether we can output. They're two different things, right? That's the issue here. There's two separate issues going on at the same time. So, let's have a look at this. Right. So we don't want to, we want to disable that. Right, so now we're spawning an object. Okay, so that's cool. So now, if we look at the refiner, and we look at the input, this is way above. This is way above. But the problem is that we're not using, yeah. Whoa. Right, okay, whatever. Let's see that again. Access none. So it looks like our supply actor is not getting set. Okay. And of course we probably it's in the Spliner. If you look at references, right, that's nowhere. And that's in the refiner. So we're kind of not setting it anywhere. Except we should be, because we changed all of these things when we created our, there's our spliner, right? And there it's there. So I'm not getting it. Let's check again on our spliner. Instance editable, expose on spawn. Okay. So let's go back in here. We'll press continue. Right, we'll build a refiner. No, that should be right. Right, okay. Okay. This is the wrong place. No, it's not. It's actually not. What we want to do is we want to check the miner, okay? Right? Add breakpoint. And now we'll do our probe. And we'll spin this round. And we want to see if this gets set, or where, if this gets set at all. That's going to be the question for us here. So when we create the spliner, the supply actor is actually set to something. I hate how that happens. You see, there it goes, right? Now that should get set. And now if we go to the miner, in fact no, we should be going to the spliner, and the supply actor is BP miner. So that's right. That is absolutely 100% correct. Right, now if we join that up, our end actor should now be BP refiner, which is absolutely 100% correct. Right, now if we go to our component input, well, that wasn't the thing that was screwing it up. It was the was the base building, wasn't it? Well, not really. Now, where was that again? Was it in base building? Apparently not. There's only construction script. So component output. So this was the thing that was redoing the supply, right? But we were never doing this because find references. Right, so we need to do that, and it's in the refiner. Okay, so this is the part here. Right, so the input is full, right? We know the input is full, so we get the output spliner's nothing. How can the output spliner be nothing? Right, okay. On that, we're going to work on it some more offline, off stream. So if you've enjoyed our little look at switching off supplies, we're going to have to carry it on obviously tonight at 8 PM Central. But check out the description, hit the subscribe button. Check the description for Discord, Patreon, and my previous Steam game. And I shall see you all later. Thanks for popping by. Bye.